Hey there, thanks for using Extempore. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the basics of getting started with the platform, including account creation, settings and navigation, and finally creating your first assessment. Let's get started. To create an account on Extempore, simply fill out the form here. Let's see, new Extempore account. This is under a student-funded plan. I have my account credentials. Once I click I am not a robot, I can create my account. Once I've created an account, I'm taken here to the class creation page. Here, I can create my first class. We'll call this demo class. I can select the language that I'll be teaching. Say I teach Spanish, I can click Spanish. And here, you're asked the question of how you would like to get started. Import Extempore 101 for Spanish, which is recommended for new users. What Extempore 101 is a basic assignment that gets students familiar with how the platform works. It has a handful of questions in it that shows text prompts, audio prompts, video prompts. Again, it allows students to see how the platform functions. I'm gonna keep that in there, and I'm gonna click Create. Once I click Create, my class will be created. And as you can see here, this is the Extempore teacher portal. I have my class name. I have a few other things like the first assessment that I have, which is Extempore 101 Spanish. From here, we can do a few things with this assessment, which we can do with all assessments. We can see the assessment name. We can see how many questions it has. We can add a question to it. And over here, we have a few options. From here, I can click in and I can edit the assessment. I can also copy this assessment, duplicate it, and make an exact copy of it, and then I can work with it in a different way and make a few changes. From here, I would go to a different class. If I had another class, I could copy it, and I could give it a new name as well as a new timeline when creating the assessment. I can also forward this assessment and share it with my colleagues. I can just simply click on this link, copy that link, share it with somebody else, and then they can import that assessment into their classes. And finally, of course, with the trash can, I can delete the assessment. From the homepage of the teacher portal, we can manage all of our classes. Here, I have my first class, and just like with assessments, I can edit this class information. I can copy the class over and duplicate all of this assessments and just create another one. Or I can share this class with a colleague by clicking on this link, and then they would receive this link. They can edit those assessments, and they can import all of this information from this class into their accounts. Finally, I can share this link with my students and get them to enroll in the class, which we'll see in another video. Let's look at teacher preferences. If I come to the preferences page, I can enable a few things. First is safe mode. What safe mode does is preserves academic integrity on Extempore. You can see here it says enable safe mode to preserve test integrity. Downloading and copy-paste functions will be disabled. It also adds in a few other safeguards, for example, the navigation warnings. So when students have a timed assessment, which is a single response assessment, and they click away from a tab and they deactivate the page that they're on, they'll get a navigation warning that pops up and says, hey, you've left the page, you need to confirm and say that you're back on this assessment and that you won't do that again, and that your teacher will find out about it. So here you can enable safe mode, that will add in those features. Enable Google Classroom. If you have a Google Classroom account, you can sync your classes, students, assignments, and your grades to the Google Classroom account. You can accept late work, which determines whether or not students can access and complete past due assignments. If that is turned off, they will not be able to see past due assignments, nor will they be able to submit work for those assignments. Percentage scores, simple enough. Instead of showing the number of questions they got right out of an assessment, it will show the percentage they got right. And then language keyboard allows students to select a language keyboard based for their written responses. Second setting that we have are notification preferences. This is something that I like to use a lot, specifically when feedback is available. You can notify students via email when assessment is available. You can notify students via email when an assessment is due. And you can finally notify students via email when feedback is available. So that once I click submit feedback, that student will receive a little email that says, hey, Mr. Kastner left you some feedback. You should go check it out. Right to left languages, if you teach a language that is written from right to left, like Arabic or Hebrew, you can select which class that setting should apply to, and then you can have your language show up the proper way. Once we're comfortable with our class page, our assessment page, and our settings, we can finally create our first assessment. Here I can click the plus sign and create my first assessment, and we will call this sample assessment. From here, we can look at the assessment parameters and check out the settings that we have for each assessment that we make before we get to adding the questions, as you'll see, step 3. Assessment timeline determines when is that assessment available. If I'm creating my assessment now, when do I want my assessment to be due? Okay, we'll say I want to do 5 days from now. These are my start time and my due date. The student cannot see the assessment before the start time is active, and then once it is past the due date, that assessment will be marked as late. Assessment type, do you want a group assessment or an individual assessment? Individual, the student is answering on their own. For group assessments, which we will look at later, we have an option of synchronous rooms. So synchronous rooms is kind of, if you click yes, it's kind of like a Zoom breakout room. Students will get into their own room and they can talk live at the same time. Whereas an asynchronous room is kind of like a mobile message chat room, except instead of sending text messages, you're sending audio messages to one another. For synchronous rooms, the maximum amount of students you can have is 6 with a recording time up to 20 minutes. For asynchronous rooms, you can have up to 15 students in your room with a minimum of 2 students, and they can send as many messages as they want. For this assessment, we will go with an individual response type. And how will the students respond? Will it be a video response? Well, I will see their face. Will it be an audio response, just recording themselves, or with text where they will have to write out a response. From here, I have my audio response type selected, and now I can look at limitations, the timers that you can add to various questions. Limit time to review, do I want that student to have is this a high stakes assessment where I want them to have a time to review, limited time, say 30 seconds. And if I do have time to review added, say I have 30 seconds, like I said, do I want the prompt to be hidden or visible when the time to review timer ends? In this case, I would want it to be visible, but I'm also gonna turn off this setting anyways. We can look at those later. Limit time to respond, just like limit time to review. How much time does a student have to respond to that prompt? You can change that, have it set as 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, however much time you want them to have. And then finally, attempts. Do you want that student to have a single attempt or unlimited attempts to answer that prompt? If we get into looking at other parameters, we can click show all parameters. And from here, I can add an assessment description. This is a basic description. Add assessment description, I can also determine students see grades when I publish grades or while I'm grading. So say you are giving them the same assessment to multiple different classes and you don't want that feedback and their responses to be available immediately after you grade them. You can choose, okay, I want all of my grades to be published when I'm done every class that I've graded. You click publish grades and then those grades will go out. Versus while I am grading, is when as soon as you click submit feedback on the grading page, which we will see, the student will see that feedback and their score immediately. Randomized questions, pretty self-explanatory. Instead of having the numbered tiles, it will show just question marks for each question, and students won't know what order they are in. And then providing a numeric score allows you to add a unique rubric, which we will also see in another video. I'm gonna click no here, and then once I've done that, I have created my assessment. And once I have the framework of that assessment like we just did, then I can add questions for my students to answer. So I can title this question Q1 and say, introduce yourself in the target language, saying as much as you can. From here then, I can choose to upload media prompts. Do I want to upload an image, a video, MP3 file, anything that I already have stored on my computer? Or do I want to record my own video file? Well, recording will pop up, and I can record myself saying whatever I want. Hey there. Or I can click on audio file, and just like with a video, except my face does not appear, I can record my own audio file, whether in the target language, share language, whatever you want to do. Once I have my question title, I have my text. I'm not going to add a media prompt. I want this to stay very simple. We can look at these settings later. I can click next, and just like that, I have my first assessment with one question made. Once I'm back to my homepage, I can see the original class, the Extempore 101 Spanish that I first imported, and I can also see the sample assessment that I just created. You'll see these are all marked as active. If they were marked as scheduled, then they would be future assessments. If they were passive, then they're late. If they're drafts, then they're copied from another class where you imported them, but you have yet to set dates for when you want those assessments to be active. So there you have it, class settings, creating a basic assessment, assessment settings, and some personal account settings all on your Extempore account.